Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is abundance teacher and money coach, Jody Lynn Craven.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And Jody Lynn, of course, you remember we had Marilyn Penny on to join us last summer. I mean, wow, it was like, what, 7-8 months ago, something like that.
Has it really been that long?
It's been that long, yeah. It seems like yesterday, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
Definitely doesn't feel like 7 or 8 months ago.
No. But
No.
but we kept in touch. You've been working with Marilyn. She was helping me out. She was helping me clear some stuff out back then, which did produce some interesting results. It was interesting how that played out. Essentially, she was trying to help me clear some stuff with relationships. And well, I didn't find that special someone just yet, which is an appropriate thing to say on February 14th. But despite the fact that didn't happen, what did happen is I ended up clearing out some stuff that was in the way, and I could feel the difference on that. That definitely did happen. So first of all, Marilyn, thank you for helping with that. I appreciate that.
It's my pleasure.
And now since then, you've launched something new. You kind of are expanding your offering a little bit here, right? Because now you're not just working with people, you're working with properties, which is that's an interesting shift. How did that come about?
Well, actually, properties have been a part of my work initially, but I really didn't realize how impactful they are and how they actually are a standalone service. And so I really wanted to highlight those. And, and with Jody Lynn's help, actually, we sort of, I repositioned and learned how to highlight those, and actually working with some realtors too produced some amazing results. And I realized that certainly is something that can be helpful as well. So I really wanted to separate that out and just say, hey, we can just work with you on property energy clearings as well. And that may lead into some soul clearing for you personally, if that's what you would like. But this is a standalone service, and I wanted to talk more about it.
That's cool. And of course, Jody Lynn, you were expanding your capabilities too, because you were helping with the web design and you were copywriting and doing all this stuff to help her improve the presence, right?
Yeah.
Basically, reapplying skills.
Well, yeah, I just have a knack for weird things. So it wasn't like I'm starting a career in web design or copywriting or anything like that, but just helping out a friend with some weird skills that I have. But I was going to say too that Marilyn, she's very modest. Very modest.
Yes.
And when this whole conversation came about, she was talking about her statistics when it comes to like working with real estate agents, like agents that have had properties on the market and sitting and not moving. And as the what's it called? The market becomes kind of stagnant with really high interest rates, or there's not a lot of properties. So there's a lot of like fighting or like whatever, right? All of these things that realtors get caught up in, where there's a property sitting, or homeowners trying to sell their house get caught up in these belief systems. Marilyn swoops in and she has like an incredible record of like clearing, and boom, it's gone, like days, when it sat previously for sometimes months, right, Marilyn?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there are a lot of moving parts when you're selling a house. There are a lot of people involved. There's a lot of stuff going on. And I noticed that in the market, you can make a house, you can have fabulous curb appeal, and you can stage it, and you can do all these lovely things to make it appealing, and have a website and have, pictures and images. But if there's stagnant energy, or if there's a low vibe energy in that house, it's not going to attract the buyer. So that's the missing piece in my opinion, is that we don't look at what we can't see that may be impacting the sale of our home, or even just our home's general vibe.
But what a surprise. We can't see it, so of course we don't act on it.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Exactly.
This isn't a hard equation to figure out.
No, it's the intangible that I that I provide. So, but it's the feeling that you get after. It's the awareness. It's something that you experience before and after a clearing happens. Then you start to realize what it is, right?
And you did a clearing for me last week as kind of a lead up to,
Mhm.
the appearance today, and I have to tell you, since you did that clearing, I can't point to specific things that, like, this amazing event has happened. I can't point to anything like that, but my attitude has shifted. Now, it's not like I don't constantly work on my attitude. I do. I'm I'm Mr. LOA today. I'm all about trying to get the
Exactly.
right attitude and maintain it, right? But unlike
Yeah.
everybody else, I have my ups and my downs and good days and bad days, and lately there've been quite a few where I've been really struggling. And then you did the clearing. Now, I mean, who knows what was actually happening here, but I see the association. You do the clearing, and all of a sudden, like, the last few days, I've been feeling really very, very different. Now, I should mention, I haven't actually said this on the show yet. I've been dealing with something I've never had to deal with before. I've always had very low blood pressure. They say 120 over 80. That's the average, right? I've always been like 90 over 60, 100 over 70. I've been in that range, and then all of a sudden, I'm now up around 120 over 80, or even a little bit higher at times. So I'm not like high blood pressure. I'm not like super hypertension, but boy, do I feel the difference. And I'm way down. Like, oh my God, I can't live like this. I got to get the blood pressure back down. I don't like this. So I've been dealing with that, and I've been succeeding too. I've been making some progress in that way. But I've also been dealing with the day to day of what that feels like and how it weighs you down. And I mean, you were asking me, before the show, am I doing a lot of dancing? I've been doing some, but not as much as I was doing before. Why? Because I wasn't feeling up to it. I wasn't feeling great. You
Right.
know.
Right.
So when you did the clearing, I didn't get a whole bunch of energy, but what I did get is feeling better about what I was dealing with. And I actually had a
Okay.
couple of, in fact, yesterday, I had something really interesting happen yesterday. Yesterday, I've been getting into artificial intelligence a lot lately. I'm particularly working with Google's newest version of their AI product, which they
Ooh.
recently changed to Gemini. They used to call it Bard before, but now it's Gemini. And
Oh,
really, I
interesting.
am really intrigued about the things you can do, really basic everyday things. Like, you would not believe how many wonderful recipes I've gotten out of that for to just cook
Really?
for
Oh,
cooking, different meal. Yeah, you
that's
say, well, I need a new recipe to cook some chicken, but I want it to be non-dairy and I want it to be really flavorful and cut down on the butter. And you give it all these details, and it gives it to you, and it's great. I can't say they're all great. Some of them are really terrible, but some of them are really, really tasty. Yeah, you have to, you take a risk, you try it, you see what happens,
good. Yeah.
Like 90%
Yeah.
of them are really, really good. So that's just one example. Another example, I was literally just today, the last couple of days, I've been dealing with a computer issue. I won't go into what the issue was, but it's basically a programming issue. And it was tied to something that had been going on for the longest time. So I said, well, Gemini, can you help me solve this? And Gemini said, sure, I'll be happy to. So we just start doing step-by-step troubleshooting. And it ended up finding out that there was a major problem going on with my file system that I didn't even know about, just by helping
What?
me walk through the steps on this. Like, this is really cool
Hey,
stuff.
that's cool.
So, tying back into what I was talking about with what you did, you helped to clear what I was dealing with, and then over the next few days, I started feeling good about stuff. And one of the things I felt good about was what was happening with the AI, and I particularly recognized that, oh my God, not only can this help me with my computer, but the LOA Today app has been unreachable and unusable for the last couple of years because I couldn't fix it. I can fix it. Gemini can help me fix it. Like, oh my God, this is great. And I was feeling so good about that. So, like, things like that have been happening in the last
That's
few
so
days where all of a
Wow.
cool.
sudden I'm saying, it's like the world is opening up
Yeah.
again. It
Aw.
was kind of closing down before, because that's what happens when you're feeling, kind of, ugh,
Mhm.
it starts to close down on you a bit. Well, it's starting to open up
Yeah.
again. And I directly associate that with the clearing because that's when it all started happening.
That's amazing. And I appreciate that so much because a lot of people, the awareness is a big part of it, right? Like really kind of being aware of how you're feeling and what's changing. And sometimes it's super subtle too. And it
It
was like,
is.
no, I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything. It's like, well, it's maybe not going to be a crash, boom, bang, but maybe it's just going to be enough of a shift that you start then to move in a different direction or you start to feel better. And those are the kind of cues that I look for when people are telling me, how they're feeling after. And I'm like, maybe we can find something that you want to measure it with, like,
Mhm.
animals acting up or not sleeping very well. Oh, I had a really good sleep the other night. Oh, okay. Now I connect the dots. So yeah, that's wonderful. I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think energy clearing in terms of a space, or they would relate it anyway, to like paranormal activity or
Right.
spirits or like weird things happening like that. And I mean, you do deal with some of that, but the majority of it is like this stagnant energy that's sitting there. And also I would love for you to go through what you detail in your report, Marilyn, because that kind of like
Sure.
summarizes all of the different areas that you go through when you look at that home when you're doing it for a person. Like, I mean, when you do it for a commercial property or a real estate agent, they don't really get all of those details, do they?
Unless they want them. And some people do like to know the whole story, and other people just want to sell the house. So just do
Yeah.
what you do and I will sell the house and everyone is happy. But yeah, homeowners typically like to have all the nitty-gritty details, and I
Mhm.
like for them to have it too, because quite often if there are a number of people in the house, certain energies will connect to certain people. So there might
Mhm.
be a particular issue going on with a child in the house, or even a pet in the house, or somebody is having trouble sleeping, someone else is going through low moods and low motivation, and then I'm able to kind of go in and dig in and find out, okay, what is going on in the house, what kind of energies are showing up. So just to give you a recap, I look first to see open portal ways. And open portal ways are those energetic openings that allow things to come and go. So it's like having Swiss cheese around your property. So it's unstable essentially. So one minute you're feeling good, and the next minute you're feeling not so good, and it's the ebbs and flows that maybe don't seem to be that it seems like there's something else. It's not always you. It's some things that are getting stuck in your space and being allowed to flow in and out. So through my work, I'm able to clear out what needs to be cleared out and then close down those portals so that you then have a stable home. You're protected essentially from these runaway energies, I'll call them. Okay. And then I check for things like types of energies that are coming up that I call negative energies only because they're not serving you. So things like loss or depression or anxiety or isolation. Isolation comes up a lot. It came up a lot through COVID and post COVID, and a lot of people spend a lot of time in their homes alone working, and they don't sometimes realize that they feel a little bit isolated. And if you have that energy and you think that a lot, it can get stuck in your space. And then you start to kind of feel that way all the time, and you don't realize what that is. So if we're able to clear that up, it just elevates and removes some of that isolation feeling from you. And you say, oh, okay, I'm not really isolated. I am reaching out to people. And then maybe you feel a little more social, and you start to feel a little better. So those are some of the things that I look for. I also look to see if you have earthbound souls that are attached to your place, which that freaks people out a little bit sometimes because like, who's here? What's going on? But that just means that there are souls that have passed, people that have passed away, that for one reason or another they're staying attached. So they don't want to fully transition because maybe they passed away early, maybe they were very close to someone who lived in the house before, and they don't feel like they want to fully leave. And what happens is that they need your energy to stay earthbound, so they're going to take energy from the house, from the people in the house, and that's just not appropriate. It's important for them to fully transition and to be released from the house. So there are different types of these, and they just cause that energetic instability. And some, like a disruptive earthbound soul, can make noise. So those are those little things that go bump in the night, or shadows in the corner, or somebody's watching you, and it's not dangerous. It just means that there are souls there that are looking for a way to be transitioned, and they're not, so they're showing up, so they want someone to help to clear them away, and that's some of what I do.
You also said
And one
something
of
very
the
interesting when
Sure.
you cleared the property where I'm living right now. You sent me an email detailing what you'd found, and you mentioned that the property was located on a battlefield, which really surprised me because I live in Simsbury, Connecticut. I'm on the north end of town, so I'm about 3 miles outside of the main central area of the town. And Simsbury's been around since 1670, so it has a bit of a history. I couldn't find anything that indicates there's been any Revolutionary War battles going on around here or anything like that. So I don't have, there's no written history saying, yeah, there was a battle going on here. But you indicated that there was, and you said there were 4 souls that had been hanging around that you helped to clear out. Can you tell me anything about that? I'm just kind of curious, like, what kind of, was this like a skirmish that happened with natives or something like that? I don't know what it was.
Yeah, sometimes I can see images of something going on. In your case, I didn't see anything in particular. So I think what happens is my understanding is that land is energetically assigned. So it would be energetically assigned as a battleground. It doesn't necessarily mean there were battles on that land, but it means that's the energy that is happening on that place. Those
Mm,
disruptive souls could have been from any time. They've just been around for a long time. So they are making noise. They are essentially disrupting the energy for the people that live on that land. So that's what's causing it. So yeah, I mean, there are historians and people that get into the nitty gritty details of what's going on. I'm really just all about what's the energy, what's going
mm,
on, how is it
understandable.
affecting us, and let's clear it out. So
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
sort of keep it to that. I have seen images. I've cleared spaces that are a sacred site, and I actually did see. I had imagery of Native American and Native Indigenous ceremony on the land. So I was able to explain that and say I really did have a visual of that happening.
Mhm.
So it's very interesting how sometimes I'll have a very clear image, and sometimes I'll just get, nothing in particular, but let's move this out. So,
Well,
it's
yeah,
it's
well, and like I
it's
wrote to
everything
you,
is different.
the fact that you said battlefield was interesting because I live in an apartment. It's an apartment building that has 6 apartments in it. There are 2 wing apartments, and then there are 4 that are stacked first floor, second floor. I'm in the top right second floor, and the people who live below me it's a couple with a very young daughter, probably 4, 5, 6, something like that. And they have power struggles all the time. Not all the time, but they have frequent power struggles. You can hear, the parents escalating with the kid and all that kind of stuff. And it was particularly bad when I moved in. It has since calmed down over time. It used to be there was a struggle going on just about every day. Now it's about once or twice a week. And I kind of thought to myself, I wonder if that's my energy helping to calm them down. But also, you mentioned the battlefield. I thought, well, is that energy feeding them? I mean, because they already have a tendency. I mean, it's very clear to me the parents really don't understand that every time they escalate, they're escalating the kid. They haven't figured that part out yet. But nevertheless,
Right.
the pattern keeps going on, right? So it makes me wonder, is the one feeding the other?
Yeah, and the energy that gets stuck in that space and those disruptive souls that are circulating around. And I know that you asked me too about, can that impact the apartments around you? Like if you're in
Mhm.
an apartment building and I am clearing your particular apartment, that does impact the people around you as well. So there
Mm,
may be a nice residual impact on those people. So,
that'd be even
you
better.
might
Yeah.
see some, additional calming going on. That would be
Mhm.
wonderful. Now
Yeah.
that we've reassigned the property, and because I've reassigned the land from a battleground to a home and home office, that whole building is on that land. So
Okay.
it really should have a positive impact on everyone in the building by
So if my neighbors
association.
thank me, I'll know why.
Yeah, exactly.
Ah.
Yeah, that's really interesting how that works, though.
Yes.
It's fascinating.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Jody Lynn, I'm curious because you're a channeler, right? So there's a
Mhm.
definite similarity to what Marilyn does. Do you find yourself ever having the kinds of experiences that she has where you're able to notice things going on where a property is concerned?
Um, I've never really done it consciously where I was like, oh, this property, I can tell something bad's going on here or whatever. But I
Mhm.
do feel like when I walk into different places, I can sense different things. Usually my focus is on the people,
Mm.
not so much the property. But I have noticed that a lot about my own property. For
Oh.
one, as soon as we moved out here, like I felt that it was really sacred and it was obviously breathtaking, but there was just something very moving about this place and very different, even though I grew up like just I don't know, less than 5 miles away. It's very different than my parents' place.
Mm.
I noticed the energy of we're building out like a ghost town. I think I mentioned that a couple weeks ago at my
Yeah.
parents' place
Cool.
in their back 40. Yeah, that place has always felt very sacred. So I've noticed the energy there, but never really tapped in to ask the questions of what's going on.
Mm.
But funny enough, when I first started learning to hone my channeling skills, and I was actually working with Heather, um, this Indian chief showed up in one of our channeling sessions. Like I think I had my eyes closed. I can't remember whether they were closed or they were open, but I remember I was sitting in a specific spot and I was like, there's someone behind me. And I had my eyes open because I could see I was like, there's someone behind me. I could sense it. And then I could see it in the Zoom reflection behind me because
Wow.
there was a window right behind me. I was like,
Okay.
there's somebody like behind my left shoulder. Heather, like, who is that? Like, what is that? What's going on? What do I do next? And so we channeled on that in that moment. And we were, at that time, we were sourcing some guides, like figuring out who my guide team was that helps me on my mission and stuff like that. And so he had shown up to be like, hey, I want to volunteer. I'll be a guide. And so what we channeled about this land is that way back in the day there was a tribe that came and lived here and this place was sacred for them and he was the chief of many chiefs or something like that. And it's funny because Marilyn actually did a clearing on our land. And that's something that came up too. And I never said anything to Marilyn, not that I was trying to test her or anything like that, just completely forgot about it. And then it came up in what she was receiving for information as she was clearing the land was something about that too, like an old tribe, or I can't remember exactly what the land was,
Mhm.
like classification was, but it was something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was sacred site, just what you've said. It was sacred. Yeah, and it was sacred in the sense that it was very minimalist. And that's, I think, where we were trying to tap into the abundance factor because people will have abundance sort of siphoned off a little bit because the land was intended to be very, sacred, minimalist, not, not necessarily abundant. So that's something that by adjusting the property's intention, we can unlock that and open that up a bit.
Mhm. Another really
Mhm.
interesting thing that came from my clearing was that there was there was something about a great abundance that was here. I don't know if it was my energy that brought the abundance forward or whatever, but that was being siphoned by an adjacent property owner.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I felt it. I felt that happening. I could see it happening, but it was not conscious until Marilyn called it out and then helped me cut that cord.
Mhm.
Wow. I
Yeah.
didn't know that was even possible to do that. You could actually siphon it off.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Mhm.
I'm a pretty big giver, so I was probably like,
Yeah, but
"Here."
but you wanna do it voluntarily and
Yeah,
preferably
yeah,
consciously.
yeah, right, consciously.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
And I
don't know
think
if you
sometimes
remember
it's
that part.
I do 100%. And I like to be able to give some energetic sort of we do a sphere of protection around property because we are adjacent to other people's properties, but we don't want their energy spilling into us, or, them taking our energy and that sort of thing. So I'm able to actually put energetic protection around your property so that you can create what you want to create. And if someone beside you is not abundant or struggling, it's not going to impact you. You can have your own situation, your own peace and quiet, and your own home sanctuary, and that's what we want.
Yeah, that's what most people want, I think.
Agreed.
I would think so.
I mean, they may not be asking for a house clearing, but in general, that's what they want. I mean, we want our homes to be peaceful, happy, wonderful
Yeah.
places. We want to have that kind of an atmosphere.
Absolutely. And I think people don't always understand that when they don't know what's happening, because they might go to work and they feel okay, and then they come home and they start, they're having arguments, or they're feeling down, or they're sitting on the couch and eating, watching TV all the time. They don't feel motivated to do anything, and then they start spending more and more time at work, or they don't want to be in their house. And I've even had people say, I don't spend any time in this particular room and I don't know why. And then after the clearing, I hear that, you know what, I am now in that room. I have started back doing my artwork in that room, or my hobbies. And I'm like, wow, that's so cool. I mean, I love hearing those stories. There's lots of them. So
That's how you know what you're doing is actually making a difference.
yes, yes, exactly. And that just makes me happy that people do have an impact on what I'm doing, because it is energetic. Like you say, it's intangible. You can't see it. So how do we know that it's really doing anything? And this is how. This is how.
Well, that's what makes what you're doing so interesting. And Jody Lynn does something similar with her coaching practice. She also is working with the intangibles of energy, spiritual energy. Um, but
Yeah.
when somebody chooses to try to pursue a career or even a hobby or an interest with that kind of thing, how do you measure your results? That's a hard decision to make, to say I'm going to go do that, because how do you know when you're winning?
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
There's a lot
Well,
of
it's really
faith.
cool. Sorry, go ahead.
There's a lot of faith that is required, right, Marilyn?
There is, and it's nice working with the realtors too, because I can really measure. Like I had a realtor who was trying to rent a property, and they had been, looking for people for, I think, 2 or 3 months, and couldn't find the right person. They had some people interested, but it wasn't who this particular owner wanted as a tenant. So they asked me to clear it. I cleared it. I told them, two more people need to see this property, and in 7 days it will be done. And it's 7 days it was done.
Wow.
And two more people had seen the property. Like that kind of stuff,
Wow.
when I can measure like that, that's brilliant. And when I'm able to, when she was the same realtor, needed to sell a house, there were a lot of moving parts. There was a lot of digging. We had to, release some people from the house, and, sort of massage it a little bit. But within 3 days, there was a signed offer, after a lot of back and forth and several months of, up and down. And yeah, so it's working.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I've got to ask you what I previously asked Jody Lynn about this, and in a slightly
Okay.
different context, but the same general idea. So
Okay.
you were dealing with this real estate agent who deals with rentals, and you
Mhm.
told him that within 7 days there were going to be two offers, and you were going to two potential renters, I should
Two.
say, and that
Yeah.
the place is going to be rented in 7 days. Now, Jody Lynn, when I told her, when I pinned her down on something where she had a similar thing that she was saying, I said, "How did that feel? I mean, did you really believe that when you were saying it?" And she said, "How am I supposed to know what's going to happen? That it's what came to me, so I said it. But I mean, I don't. How did you feel when you were saying that? When you were saying it to the real estate agent?"
I don't know, and I don't always get that specific information, but for that one, I absolutely did, and I felt 100% confident. And that's part of it too, right? Is standing in your truth and saying, "This is
Mm.
what I've got. This is what I get." And I was happy to hear that's how it worked out.
What
You
did the
know, and
realtor say?
she was over the moon. I mean, and the owner of the property certainly was too. And rentals are not really what this realtor does on a regular basis. It was just sort of a favor for a friend. And she said, I really just want to get this off my books. Like, can we just get this done? And yeah, and now this realtor is, I'm going to be clearing all properties, all her listings, because
Nice. Whoa.
she, that's my vision, is that we now not only, clean a property, declutter a property, stage a property, we also energetically clear a property. How cool would that be
Yeah.
if that became a real estate norm? That's my
Well,
vision.
yeah. Well, and I mean, like, your results speak for themselves. Like, there's going to be 2 people, and within the next 7 days, boom, and then it was done. And I understand that it's not always
Yeah.
that way, and we can talk about some of those things, like some of the things that
Mhm.
are trip up the energy for things not to move, because I think that's important. But I think
Yeah.
for a realtor to have that tool in their tool belt of like, hey, I'm just going to do this clean slate, try and whatever happens,
Yeah.
happens. I mean,
Mhm.
it's amazing.
It can't hurt, right?
No.
And if you've tried everything else, you reduced the price, you've done this, you've done that, and it's still not moving, then what could it be? Could it
Yeah.
be the energy? And we also talked about, and I've mentioned before about, houses being connected to their families. And my family home,
Mhm.
for instance, was in our family for 60 years.
Wow.
So I did a lot of clearing and a lot of cord cutting and a lot of releasing. And, my siblings and I were attached to that house, and we needed to let that house let us go. And it took a bit of time, but eventually it did work, and we were able to sell it. But there is something to that a house feels, the house has a soul, and a house gets attached, and we get attached to our houses too, in our spaces. And we may want to sell our house, and everything looks optically like we're ready to go, but maybe emotionally we're hanging on to that house. And some deep level, there's an energetic connection that we've made, and we're having trouble letting that go. And that's something that I can help with too, so that I'm able to tell the house, it's okay. It's okay. You're going to have a new family. This family needs to move on to something bigger or another place or whatever it is. And that just really just eases everyone all around, and it brings the right solution for that house. So yeah, I
Mhm.
love that.
Yeah. I was actually gonna bring that up, the family aspect or being, like, attached or connected or whatever, because that's been my
Mhm.
experience with my office. We've cleared it a couple of different times, and it hasn't gone yet, and I think that well, I know actually, that the biggest reason was, my attachment to it and its attachment to me. And that's something
Mhm.
that we don't often think about, the energy in that space being attached to us, not wanting to let us go. But you've seen this in multiple different places where the space in particular does not want to let go of the occupants. They don't want them to leave because they're afraid or, they love them so much or whatever
Mhm.
it is.
Yeah.
Which I think is mind blowing, but I feel that to be true, or I have felt that to be true with our
Yeah.
suite that we have.
Mhm.
This is really
Yeah.
interesting because you guys may have noticed I've changed my background. I used to have a dark sky
Cool.
background. Now it's this background actually is an image taken with the Webb telescope, which is now out beyond the moon, 100,000 miles away from the Earth, and is able to get
Mm.
these incredible vista views. Um, but one of the reasons I put this image up is to remind me of something that 15 years ago, I would have laughed at, and now I completely believe, which is that everything is alive, everything has energy, everything is conscious. And that's what you're talking about here. You're talking about a home being conscious. 15 years ago, if I had heard you talking about a house being conscious, I would have said, "Oh God, here we go." Now I'm saying, "Well,
More,
yeah, I
just
guess
more
everything is,
woo.
so it must be."
Ah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And speaking of things that are still, that are living, and it's just a tip here. If you have, remains like cremains, so you've
Mhm.
cremated a loved one or a pet, and you have their urn in your place. First of all, it's really good to return. It's When you have cremains, that's a very high yin energy, which is low vibe energy. So when you have it in your house, it's bringing your energy down. So first of all, if you are planning to spread ashes, it's a good idea to spread them, and it's very good not to have them near where you sleep or where your pet sleeps, or and the other tip that you can do is to have something with high yang energy to balance it out. So a plant, something that's rooted to the earth. So that's going to bring that balance into your home and help with that energy if you would like to keep those cremains in your space. So that's just something. There's lots of different things you can do to help your energy on a temporary basis. Like people sage and use crystals, and those are good things to, elevate the vibe and clean out some energy. What I do is it's permanent. Like I actually go in and adjust things for you in the records, and I talk to your house and I say, what do you need? Like sometimes a house is just sad or lonely, or feeling the grief that the people are feeling if there's been a death in the family. So we need to do something to cheer that house up, and that's going to help elevate the vibration as well.
Replace the yin with the yang. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
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 I'm also curious though, because last time we had you on, we did talk about Akashic records, and that's I presume that's the records you're referring to here. Talk about how that ties in to what you're doing.
So I actually read the Akashic records for the property. So there'll be Akashic records for your soul, and we have records for the property as well. So I can look up the property's records simply by the address and read what's going on, what's happening in the house, and then I have a little conversation with the house to see what we can do to help clear and elevate its vibration.
So this is like a spiritual title search.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
Great way to put it.
Oh, I love that. Can I take that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, like I just think of all the things. Like I've sold a few houses in my lifetime, and all of the things that you do. I mean, all the paperwork and all the steps that you go through, and like you say, the title search and all of that work that you go through. And to think that and I have had houses sit, on the market, and you think you've done absolutely everything, and then here I come along with, here's one more thing that I think could really help, and it actually does, sort of like the icing on the cake or the cake topper. Here's the pièce de résistance to sell your house. So yeah,
it's the ice cream on the cake.
Yes.
And I do like ice cream on my cake. Yeah.
Me too.
I do too. Yeah.
It may not be good for me, but I don't really care.
Yeah, treat yourself.
Well, the other thing too is this ties into energy. How do you feel about the ice cream on the cake? If when you're taking it, you don't feel so good, you're basically just not doing yourself any favors. On the other hand, if you're feeling really, really good when you're taking it, it's probably not going to have any negative effect at all, just because you feel good about it. I'm becoming very aware of just how important my attitude is in terms of how I deal with anything. It could be a negative. You mentioned that you had 4 life forms that had been stuck to the property where I live that you helped clear out and send on their way. I could have had those 4 life forms still here hanging out, and if I'm in a good mood, if I'm feeling good, they're not going to touch me. It's just not going to happen. It's only when I'm in a down mode that all of a sudden, now I'm being affected by these guys. I have to keep reminding myself.
Yeah, they kind of come in and mess with you, right? And mess with you and make it bigger. And like you were saying about, when you want ice cream on your cake and you feel terrible after, it's because you beat yourself up so much. Oh, I shouldn't have it. Oh, I can't have it. Oh, it goes right to my hips. Oh, I just look at food and I gain weight. Well, yeah, I guess that's going to happen. Keep saying that. That's what's going to happen. But if you
believe it,
I'm treating myself because I love myself, and I'm treating myself with a bit of ice cream, and it's going to go where it needs to go, and it's going to be energetically good for me today. It doesn't mean you eat ice cream every day, but gee, lots of treats.
Speaking of eating though, I think that like our society, what we've been told, there's all of these belief systems that we hold. Ice cream is bad. There's another one that I was talking to a friend about today. It's totally kind of veering off topic, but really nailing down these belief systems that we hold. And I mean, we've all heard it. How many days can you live without food?
Oh, I don't
Right?
like
I don't,
tons. Yeah, if
well,
you have water.
but what we've been told is that not that long, like not a huge amount of time is what I was always believed. I
Mm,
thought it was 3 days,
okay.
but maybe it's like a couple of weeks without food and then you'll just perish even if you have water. There's this guy who fasted. So he just had water and he took amino acid supplements to make sure that his body had the nutrients that it needed, but it kept him in his fast. He fasted for 100 days.
Yeah.
100 days and he was perfectly fine. He did not die. He lost like 160 pounds, which he needed to,
Yeah.
which is amazing. But it's so interesting that we get caught up in these belief systems, these thought forms that keep, compelling our lives or steering our lives when they're really, we don't know if they're 100% true and they might not be true for you at all. So just eat the ice cream.
That's an
Exactly. And
interesting
I'm a big,
justification for ice cream. I hadn't heard that one before.
yeah, I like that one. I like that one. Well, and a lot of people are kind of dictated by what people are telling them, like, oh, it's a down market. Oh, we're never going to find a house. Oh, we're never going to, that can't happen or that you can't do that. And I've really changed my tune over the years because, like you, well, years ago, I would have said, yeah, you're right. That sucks. And that's never going to happen. Or I can't do that. Or but now I'm like, why can't you? Well, why can't you? Do this or buy that or have that. Why can't you? Like it's, there are lots of factors involved, but if you throw roadblocks up every time you want to do something, then yeah, that's what's going to happen. You won't do it because you've told yourself already that you're not going to. So,
Yeah.
The Henry Ford aphorism, whether you think you can or you think you can, either way, you're right.
yes.
That's right.
Yes. So yeah, I love that quote. That's an awesome quote.
Reflecting on my life, reflecting on the last property that we sold, I think energy played a huge part in it also. And I never thought about this until this moment. But when we sold, people were telling us, like realtors in particular, like you never want to be the most expensive house on the block. You never want to be on a block that has, more
Yeah.
than one for sale. You don't want to be the nicest house on the block because then somebody's not going to want to buy it because it's too expensive. And when we sold our house, it was a down point in the market. We were the most expensive house on the block. There was 3 other houses for sale, not including ours. So 4 total. And ours was the most beautiful. And it sold within like a couple of days. Like that was it. It was gone.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting because we took a lot of time and energy and effort to make it look beautiful. Like just
Mhm.
painting like the nail holes and like the doors and stuff like that, just sprucing some little things up. And then I was like a cleaning mania and staged it so it looked beautiful. But the pictures from that house, like I was like, why are we selling it? We should probably just stay. Like this house is so beautiful. It looks so inviting. It looks amazing. And then it sold very quickly. But our energy was like, let's get out of here. We're, moving on to the farm. That's where we really want to be. But we saw that house up for sale last year. And they didn't do anything to it. It looks exactly the same. And yet it looked dull and dingy and small and whatever. Like it didn't look as beautiful and magnificent as when we left it. And I don't think it had anything to do with it being unclean because it looked very clean or like not newly painted or anything like that because it still looked exactly the same, but it felt completely different.
I
So
have
I
a
think
story
energy
that's
matters.
just like that. I mean, it's almost identical. It's not identical, but it's got a lot of similarity. I had a condo many years ago that I needed to sell, and every I had oh god, I had like a dozen real estate agents take a look at it and give me their estimate of what they thought it could sell for. and they all came within like $2,000 of each other. I mean, their prices were like sandwiched all together, except for one that was 25% higher than everybody else.
Oh,
And now
interesting.
I should mention I did a complete repaint, recarpet inside. So I mean, it wasn't like we did all the new appliances, new kitchen. It wasn't that kind of a thing. But I really spruced it up so that it would sell a lot easier. But nevertheless, even though all the agents saw that, they said it's still going to sell in this price range. That's what everything else in the complex sells for. There are 3 or 4
Right.
other units up for sale. They're all priced the same way. That's what's going to sell. And at the time, again, it was like you were saying, it was a down market. They said it's going to be a few months before this thing sells, except for the one agent who said, no, we're going to sell this at 25% higher and it's going to sell fast. And guess what happened? It
It
sold
did.
fast,
It's so
25%
fast.
higher, and it sold within a week.
Amazing.
It's beautiful.
Isn't that great?
All those other realtors, they needed Marilyn.
Yeah, they also needed a
Exactly.
kick in the butt, but that's another story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I think one of your slogans, Marilyn, should be before you drop your price, call Marilyn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that seems to be the only play sometimes, and we experienced that when we were selling our family home. It was just like, well, we got to cut the price, cut the price, cut the price. And I said, well, what's that telling? What is that telling prospective buyers? That
Yeah.
the house isn't worth it, and that wasn't fair to the house because it totally was. It just we just hadn't attracted the right buyer, and sometimes it only takes one person to buy the house. It doesn't take 100. It takes that one right person. And even if it cuts down the number, like this clearing work cuts down the number of people that need to see a house, isn't that a nice thing too? So you don't have to keep your place pristine for 25, 30, 50 showings. I mean, how exhausting is that? And we've all
Just the
been through
time
that.
wasted,
Yeah.
Oh,
having to
so much
leave the
work.
house, go find something to do
Yeah.
while they look at your
Yeah.
house. Yeah. Or if
Yeah,
your
and we had a
realtor like
dog at the
showing you.
time, you got to
Yeah.
truck your dog and your little kids, and you got to take them to the mall for 2 hours while someone looks at your house. And yeah, and then you take that sluggish, exhausting energy back to your house and go, oh, I've got to clean up again, another view, another showing. And yeah, it becomes just a real cesspool of sadness, maybe, that you
Yeah.
just want to clear out.
I just remember there's another piece of the story I'd forgotten about. This happened like 25 years ago. It's been a while since it happened. But there was one other piece to the story, which was, like I said, there were other units for sale. They were all priced lower, considerably lower than where mine was priced at. And one of the things that people could say is, well, somebody came in who didn't really know the market and they ended up buying it at the higher price. But actually, I know for a fact that didn't happen because the buyer was related to a neighbor who knew the complex. So they knew what they were getting. They knew what the rest of the complex was selling for, and they bought it anyway.
Ah, yeah,
That's
because
really,
maybe
to me,
That
they
that's
was
really,
so good.
they saw your place and it had good energy. Like people can feel that stuff, you can walk into a space and feel the energy. Even if you aren't super energetically sensitive, you still get kind of a vibe when you walk into a place, whether it's up or down. I've had people come into my place here and they say, well, my daughter lives in an apartment building and I don't like it in there, but I come into your apartment and it's great. Like I really notice I feel uplifted. I feel happy here. And I said, yeah, it can be a real game changer for you, just for your own life, to clear your own place and feel that positive energy and feel that motivation and feel like, okay, this is my sanctuary, this is my place, and I'm going to take care of it. And it's important too to take care of your space like you take care of yourself. Take care of your space too, make it feel happy and appreciate. I actually worked with a client who said, when they built their house, they weren't super happy with the builder and they grumbled for years about, it's too big and it's this, and we should have put a wall here, and on and on and on. And then they said, just in the last little while, they've realized that they haven't been very kind to their house. And when I talked to the house, I got a message that they were feeling disconnected from the family. And I didn't know that all of that backstory until they told me, oh, this is why the house doesn't feel connected to the family. And I said, you just need to give it a little gratitude. Walk around the house and say, man, you're a great house. You're a big house, and that means we can host a lot of people here. That's wonderful. Thank you for that. It only takes a couple minutes a day to say thanks for sheltering me against the rain and the snow and the wind and all of that. I think it's, there are all these little things that we can do to just bring that gratitude around and it comes back.
Mhm. That's what my office said to me when I had a conversation with it a couple of weeks ago. Because, you did another clearing and said that it was lonely. And I was like, all right, we're going to have a conversation. Like, we need to have a breakup talk. Number 204. Like, I'm not coming back. So you need to choose somebody else. It ain't me, babe. That was the conversation I was going to have. A lot nicer than that, obviously.
Yeah.
But when I went in there, I was talking about like, okay, like this is over. I'm not coming back. Like our contract is for sure up at this point. I'd like to be out right now. And, like it's over. We might come in and get our stuff, but we're leaving and you need to come to terms with that. And like, what can I do to help? And, like one of the things that came to me when I was channeling the energy of Sweet 204 was like, you have treated me like a piece of crap lately. Like I've been your ball and chain. I've been the bane of your existence. And like, I don't want to let you go because who's going to love a ball and chain? Like I had convinced it was ugly and that it had no value and it had no worth and it was just a drain and like all of these things. And I was like, I burst into tears and it was like, no, like you're beautiful. You're amazing. You have these beautiful light that streams through the windows. Like, look at all this space. Like you're a training center's dream. Like they could literally walk in and begin teaching classes in here. Like we have all this furniture. It's also for sale. Like the lighting is perfect. The setup is amazing. Like it's warm, it's inviting, it's comfortable. There's all these beautiful things and beautiful ways that you've supported me. And like, I'm sorry, I was such an a-hole. I didn't mean to. I can let all of those things go. And I just like praised it for a solid like 5-minute stretch of like going room to room of how beautiful it is. But I hadn't realized how much I had infused that frustration that I was feeling. Because I mean, we haven't actively been in the office since 2020. So it's sat empty and had, a huge financial burden or impact on my life and on all the other agents' lives for a long time without really giving anything back to us because our business model has changed. But now it believed all of those things. And that's not the case. There's other people that need an office space that, 3 offices and all of these other things. And so when I said that, I felt like the energy shift again, like, oh, I am beautiful. I can be seen. Like, all right, let's go. And I have a feeling that it's going to be gone within the next couple of weeks or, worst case, the next month or so. We'll see it. Say sayonara and move on to the next.
You guys are bringing back that same condo sale. Like I said, it happened 25 years ago, and I'd forgotten all the details, but you're reminding me of some of the details. Like one of the things that happened was this is a condo that I'd been living in when I met my ex, and the reason I was selling it was because we'd met. We were going to create a new home together and so forth. And when I had lived in it, I had not been happy. I had been not a happy camper at all, and it showed. It was one of the reasons why I had a team come in to just clear the place out, repaint, all that kind of stuff to give it a new energy, which they did. Now I wasn't doing energy clearing. I didn't know anything about energy clearing. This is more functional than sending in the energy expert. But when the closing came, that the couple who bought the house, they were related to people who lived literally just 4 or 5 units away from me. They came to the closing, and one of the comments they made, I'd forgotten about this. One of the comments they made was, yeah, we walked in and it was such an open and free and spiritually, they didn't say spiritually, but it had this energetically free environment. Like, whoa, okay, great. Well, hey, I'm glad that the rehab did it. I didn't have any idea that there was an energy shift that went on. But now you're reminding me they actually commented on that at the closing. Like, oh my God.
Right. Wow, that's great. So you did that because you were moving to a happier place. And I
Yeah,
think you finally came to terms with, I appreciate what this was. I'm going to clean it up and make it look nice. And, by way of doing that, you shifted the energy enough to
without even
connect
knowing it.
those buyers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so
That was a
cool.
history for me. There were a lot of ways over time that I ended up making shifts that I didn't know I was making. I had to learn about it, 20
Yeah.
years later.
Yeah, exactly. And we all kind of think back and go, oh, that's what that was.
Hmm.
Sometimes
Hmm.
I'll have someone
Mhm.
come back to me a year or 2 years later after I've worked with them and they say, you know what? I figured out something. And I said, okay, all in good time, we'll just wait and see. And sometimes you get like, and you guys, this is, law of attraction. You get those breadcrumbs
Hmm.
and maybe you don't acknowledge the breadcrumbs. You're looking for something bigger and you're like, no, I don't, I'm looking for some more money. And maybe, you find $5 on the ground. Oh my gosh, that's a sign. And somebody might think, oh, that's no big deal. No, that's a sign that's coming. That's abundance. So take it and acknowledge it and thank it, and more will come where that's coming from.
Yeah, that's the way it works, isn't it? It's an amazing
Mhm.
thing. I'm still coming to terms with it. I mean, I've been doing this show now for 11 plus years. I'm still coming to terms with it. It takes a
Yeah.
while.
It
Well, and I think
does.
it downloads at different rates too. Like there's the surface level, and then it keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper, and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Like it just, I think we get it on different levels every single
Yeah,
time. Maybe that's what ascension really is.
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting way of looking
yeah.
at it.
Well, and I
I
think we're all loaded with these blocks that we peel away like
mm,
an onion. And for me, like I'm entering my 6th decade this year, and I've got a lot of blocks I built up and a lot of walls that you got to crush them all down, and it takes a while.
interesting you say that because, well, two things come to mind. One comes to mind is an old movie called The Blind Side, story of a football player who was taken in by a family to help him develop his career after he was born into complete total poverty. And one of the lines from that movie that Sandra Bullock plays the mom utters
Yeah.
is the father mentions that the kid, his name is Michael, he's kind of like an onion. You have to peel him back a layer at a time. And the mom says, "Not if you use a knife." And that's what we're doing here. We're using a knife. We're cutting right through all the layers.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
So once again, another metaphor coming to the
That's
fore.
good.
Hey, we're running out of time, but I
Yeah,
want to
that's
make sure
good.
we
Oh,
tie in a couple things.
okay.
First of all, let's talk about not only do you have this new project launched, I mean, you have a name for it. You're calling it Energy Shift Properties. Is that right? Do I have the name right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Correct.
And there's a
Mhm.
website associated with it, right?
Yes, energyshiftproperties.com. And
Mhm.
it's super easy. You can go right on there. If you're a realtor, you're a homeowner, there's a section for you. You can book online. And, I do them once a week, and you can just book in and I'll do your clearing and send you a report. And, you know, Bob's your uncle, as they say.
But I don't have an Uncle Bob. No,
Everyone has an Uncle Bob
everybody has one.
or Uncle Buck.
Or an Uncle Buck, yeah.
It's
Okay,
great.
so that's cool, and I'll make sure that we'll include a link
Yes.
to the website in the show notes too, to make it easy for people to find it, because we like to
Thank
make things
you.
easy. Yeah, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Now, last time you were on, I made a point to thank you for all the ways that you help people out that you don't even see or hear what they're doing, because that's been my thing to do. I want to
Mm.
tag something onto that this time, because this time not only have you been helping people out that you don't even know what's happening, you also help people out that you did know what was happening, because I was able to give you a report on it, and you had been working with Jody Lynn, so you had some reports from her too. So you got
Yeah.
both this time. So
Thank
on behalf
you.
of all of us, thank you for what you've been doing, because you're making a difference in a lot of different ways here.
Oh, wonderful. Well, it's my pleasure. It's my gift to share, and I love doing it. So thank you for helping me spread the word.
And Jody Lynn always summarizes everything, because that's what my co-hosts do, and they do it because they're all really good at it. Jody Lynn is like the top of the list of how to do that. So Jody
Yeah.
Lynn, tie it all together for me.
Mm. The quote that comes in is everything is impacted by energy. And now we're just adding on, including the spaces that you occupy. So thank you for this beautiful reminder that our spaces have a souls, they have their own energy, and it's important for us to take care of them like we do our own energy. Marilyn.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you again.
It was fun. Yeah. We'll have to find out what
That was
happens
great.
with the next, because now that you're launching this, there's going to be the story, 6 months down the line. It was 6 months ago, right? So another 6 months, you're going to contact us and say, "Oh my God, you can't believe it," and you'll tell us the new story. So that'll be good.
Yeah,
Something to look
you
forward to.
Yes.
bet. Great. Thank
So
you.
thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.